What is social media? If Facebook is social media site, if Twitter is social media site, if MySpace is social media site, or even YouTube, then just what is social media?
All about cyberbullying. If you're being cyberbullied, have you actually learned where the off switch is?
No matter how privileged the surroundings are, how wonderful the education, how good the caretakers are, these children are left in the care of adults who do not love them.
It's not that the government's going to turn all the schools into central schools. It's just giving an option.
To talk about the objectives of our committee: awareness on sustainable consumption and production, inclusion of youth in initiating projects that contribute to sustainable development of a local community.
What is social media? If Facebook is social media site, if Twitter is social media site, if MySpace is social media site, or even YouTube, then just what is social media? Different people have different say, and some say that social media is a means of communication, it's a pastime, it's a necessary evil, or personal advertisement, or exchange of information, or to participate in social networking, a window, and some say it's even like a knife. And to put it in very simple words, we can say social media is a platform where people can share information and have conversations online. Lots of people are engaged in social media in one way or the other. To give you an example, I'm sure 90 to 95% of the audience right here have at least Facebook or WeChat account. We can say that there is not a corner left in Bhutan where people doesn't know what is Facebook, YouTube, WeChat, or Bluetooth. And according to Media Impact Study 2013, which was drafted by Ministry of Information and Communication, we came to know that number of internet subscribers in the year 2008 was 5,726, and over the 5 years it has increased to 162%. Similarly, there was 228,347 mobile phone subscribers in 2008, but over 5 years, which was in 2013, it was increased to 159%. And there was just a survey done in 2013. Just think about it, what it would be in 2014 or 16, 17, 18. It just keeps on growing.
Our committee also have two main objectives. The first one is creating a responsible social media culture by promoting ethics of engaging online amongst Bhutanese social media users. These days, many of us use social media in a very harmful and risky way, such as chatting with strangers or posting your personal photos and information onto some websites such as Facebook, Yahoo, which can sometimes prove very risky. We are unaware of what it might lead in the near future. We are going to educate not only the students but also the parents and the teachers about anonymity. Like some pages in Facebook as well as other websites, they are still marks. We cannot know who the owner is, and they have been spreading really bad and really negative information and brainwashing people.
There has been recently released a newspaper which was Quincel, that talking about the drafting of social media policy, and we have our friends sent to the MOIC. So we went there to ask about the policy there. Who drafted that policy? Have you ever consulted the youth? And they said, hopefully we have heard that they did consult youth, but they said it's youth representatives, and we want to know who they are. After this, and for the question we have in our mind and your mind is that why do you want youth voice in the policy, social media policy? Because from BTL, that is Bhutan Telecom Limited, we have found out that from the age of 18 to 24, it's 41% users. 41.1 users are Bhutanese youth of age 18 to 24. And guess what? In Bhutan, we have Facebook user from the age of 10, like my sister. I can give you that example. And we have would love to know who are involved in the policy making as well. And from our survey, we have out of 35 youth group, we have from the age of 15 to 25 people, we have found out that 60% of the youth haven't heard of the social media policy, and 40% have heard of policy, and out of 40%, only 3% knows what it really is.
So I'm going to talk about the local action for the social media committee, and we are going to do our local action right after the public seating. But first, I'm going to define what local action is. So local action is the implementation of our objectives at a community level. The three committees shall strive hard to ensure that we walk the talk, regardless of how small this local action is. So now here I start. So everything is at a policy level. As a young citizen of Bhutan, we are going to help draft a social media policy that every citizen understands and sensitize people on newly drafted social media policy. So now, as we think that one good policy at the local level to deal with this problem is if we propose a need for social media guidelines for schools and work together with the school's administration to come up those school guidelines in schools then. Since there are teachers here, so our group would like to suggest that schools to come up with the social media guidelines which would be understandable to the children of the primary levels too. And then our committee would like to emphasize more on the primary and high schools since the age group of 12 to 16 and 18 to 21 fall under this category. And our committee also would like to organize social media conversations which would include youths, parents and teachers every once in 2 months, and where we are going to discuss about the good things and bad things of social media here in Bhutan.
For example, if I want to talk about physics, right, and then I try to find someone who knows about physics and can talk about physics, it becomes very difficult for me. But on social media, it becomes very easy. I can easily join virtual communities that talk about physics, right?
And yeah, we have a forum doing on what great social media can do. Like we witness children usually waste time watching stuff, videos on YouTube or chatting on Facebook, but we are also going to teach them that if you upload a video which is very useful or a funny prank or anything, but useful one, not very harmful one, and if you hit a certain likes of number, you get paid by Google.
That there is a great big sort of fashionable lobby which has become a sort of a cult in the world now, all about cyberbullying. If you're being cyberbullied, have you actually learned where the off switch is? You choose to be cyberbullied because you can always turn it off by pressing the off button. So why be so sensitive about it? It's easier to turn the off button off than to actually walk away from a conversation.
I agree. Education is learning what you didn't even know what you didn't. When we, the education committee, were deliberating on what issue bothered education in Bhutan the most, an issue popped up called central schooling system. So, but before we jump into central school, I would like to ask, what is education? These are what our group members define education to be. Tool to achieve goals, to be independent, to gain knowledge, build up creative ideas and character building stage. If I want to quote some famous people from history, education is not preparation for life, it is life itself. John Dewey. Benjamin Franklin also said, an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. And interestingly, Daniel J. Burstyn also said, education is learning what you didn't even know you didn't know. I repeat, education is learning what you didn't even know what you didn't know.
We just want to let you know that we are not against the idea of central schools, but we are slightly displeased with the ministry's decision to send students from class PP to 12 to send children at a very delicate age to these types of institutions. We believe that every human has is entitled to receive love and affection from family. How emotionally scarring would it be to strip away a child from his family at a very young age and send him to these kinds of institutions? So instead of demolishing these primary schools, we think it would be a good idea if we could use those institutions to school children from class PP to 6, and then only when they are mentally and physically capable, we can send them to these central schools. And
the first impact was Mr. Burness in 2006 noted that the Canadian Central School in the past year said there have been a sexual abuse. A sexual abuse is a big word. This situation has been occurred in their places, but these things and these situations till now in our country has not been occurred, and there is not any criminal records in our country. But I'm not saying that it may not happen. There is a possibility it will occur. There are chances that it will occur. If this kind of situations occurs, then I don't know how the primary level of kids can handle it. Primary level students will be facing lots of problems. First of all, demotivations, the self-esteem they lose, and depression. I don't know, depressions, if you have experienced, if a primary level of students have to face this depression, then I don't know what will be our education systems. Well, second impact is in the USA. The situations have been occurred in USA because of overcrowding. The infectious disease was often widespread at the school due to the insufficient funding for a meal, providing a good nutrition, overcrowding, poor sanitary condition.
In Bhutan, the negative effects that that central school can have is mainly we found that sanitation was an interesting point. There's this thing called school sanitation and hygiene education, which is a very attractive issue not only from the political but also from a social perspective. It is based on the premise that children have the right to basic facilities such as toilets, safe drinking water, clean surroundings, and information on hygiene. If these conditions are created, children come to school, enjoy learning, learn better, and take back to their families the concepts and practices on sanitation and hygiene. Being clean, healthy, and having clean water and proper sanitation facilities contribute to a happy childhood. And also, bullying and discrimination are more prevalent in boarding schools, as we found out from our research, and are often of a more severe nature. Also, children removed from their rural community, family community at a very young age will most unlikely return to those communities as they grow up. We're not saying that what happened in other countries would exactly happen in Bhutan, but shouldn't we take it as a sort of warning?
It's not that the government's going to turn all the schools into central schools. It's just giving an option. Even if you look at the urban areas like Thimphu, I think there are many students who would be better off in a central boarding school than with their parents. Because in Thimphu we have so many youth-related problems, and if you look at the root cause of all this, you will see that most of them are because of their parents. Because of irresponsible parents who are drinking, who are gambling, who are not giving time for their children. So I think we have to look at it in a more balanced manner.
All due respect to the government, I think that this central school system is a lazy man's solution to a problem. The government could use those funds to partner with Tarayana and other foundations like that to help the poor people in the rural villages without necessarily snatching the kids away from their parents.
The very concept of sustainable development in Bhutan was existing
long before the sustainable development caught the global agenda. It came to, we know it from the Fort Dugalpo's statement. He enunciated in 1970 that gross national happiness is more important than gross domestic product. So the very essence of sustainable development also entails that the true development will only happen when there is balance in the economic growth as well as the social well-being and the spiritual well-being. So, like if we look into the components, the indicators, both the side of the sustainable development and GNH, well, the GNH in pursuit of happiness, it covers to keep balance of all the resources.
As per our research on the resource efficiency scenario, we found out that this is a new context in our country, and a company called SIT, Sustainable and Efficient Industrial Development, is trying to propagate this idea in our country. What they are trying to do is that they visit schools, industries, colleges, etc., and then try to find out what they need and how they use their resources. Then they help them to use their resources like land, water, energy in an efficient way so that both the pollution and the expenditure will be minimized. There is a case, according to our research, the SIT company, they visited Gita College of Business Studies and then found out that there were so many wastelands over there, and then they suggested the college to grow the simple food on that land that are required for the college. And then that is how they made use of the land that was once wasteland. To talk about the objectives of our committee, participation in rehabilitating polluted lands in Thimphu, awareness on sustainable consumption and production, inclusion of youth in initiating projects that contributes to sustainable development of a local community, promoting resource efficiency in local communities, institutions like schools, individual endeavors. Now to talk about our local action, it's quite a simple one, just rehabilitation of polluted lands. Actually, what we planned was that we wanted to rehabilitate some areas that are destroyed by forest fires and as we can see that there are so many forest fires recently, but sadly we couldn't get the Thimphu Thomde couldn't agree with us, but we are quite lucky that they gave us a choice to select some polluted lands across around the Wangchu River and then rehabilitate that area. And about the saplings, the Department of Forest is going to help us in identifying the saplings that are suitable for that place, and then that place we are going to adopt it as YI Green Forest. And about the workers, we are going to get volunteers from school and colleges, and our possible partners are SATE, Thimphu Thomde, Departments of Forest and Greenery. And thank you.
I think we really need to revisit the sustainability issue. What does it really mean? In places like US, people have demonstrated that one family of 5 members can be supported by 1 acre of land. And if you look at the Bhutanese context, you have families with 20 acres of land. But as you have just pointed out from your research, many of these lands remain fallow. And perhaps the Sustainable Development Committee could actually look into those issues and then come up with suggestions and ideas for the schools to actually adopt or take up the wasteland so that they can grow their own food.
What is social media? If Facebook is social media site, if Twitter is social media site, if MySpace is social media site, or even YouTube, then just what is social media?
All about cyberbullying. If you're being cyberbullied, have you actually learned where the off switch is?
No matter how privileged the surroundings are, how wonderful the education, how good the caretakers are, these children are left in the care of adults who do not love them.
It's not that the government's going to turn all the schools into central schools. It's just giving an option.
To talk about the objectives of our committee: awareness on sustainable consumption and production, inclusion of youth in initiating projects that contribute to sustainable development of a local community,